Exposed, spine-chilling farm stories from 7 cursed histories. Discover the sinister truths now. Jenna gripped the steering wheel as she drove down the winding dirt road, the tires crunching over gravel while unease coiled in her stomach. The old farmhouse loomed ahead, draped in shadows, an intimidating visage contrasted against the dusky sky. A deep breath didn't cleanse the feeling at her spine that something wasn't right. She reminded herself relentlessly, this move was supposed to be their fresh start, a place of growth and healing. Instead, the air hung thick with the stench of something brewing, like the storm before a downpour. Her kids, Ethan and Lily, squealed with delight as they launched themselves into the untamed yard, their laughter ringing out like bright bells cutting through the oppressive silence. But Jenna hesitated. The crows perched ominously on a gnarled tree, cawing like they held dark secrets within their feathers. She shook off the feeling, unpacking boxes instead, determined to ignore the unsettling gaze of the shadows twisting in the corners of her vision. The house was a dim cave of memories and decay. Jenna wiped the dust off a frame, revealing faded photographs of her grandmother in happier times. But the sudden creak of the floor beneath her feet sent her pulse racing. Old houses settle, surely that was all this was. Yet as the silence deepened, she couldn't help but feel the past was somehow alive, restless, waiting for something, or someone. Days turned into nights filled with restless shadows. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jenna ventured into the attic, lured by an instinct as old as the house itself. There, hidden in a forgotten corner, she discovered her grandmother's journal. The air turned colder as she leafed through pages that whispered harsh truths, tales of children going missing, neighbors with crooked smiles and hidden schemes, a curse entwined with the very soil beneath her feet. Heart pounding, she realized the land was steeped in despair, its history soaked in blood and tears, entities that sought to keep their secrets buried. Soon after, strange happenings escalated. Ethan screamed from his bedroom, claiming he saw figures skimming past the window. Panic gripped Jenna, but the sheriff's dismissive comments only deepened her sense of isolation. Small-town tales, he had chuckled, rolling his eyes as if her fear was unfounded, but he couldn't feel what she felt, the oppressive sense of being hunted. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That very night, darkness blanketed the farmhouse like an inescapable fog. The tapping began, soft at first, barely more than a whisper against the glass. Jenna's heart raced, blood pounding in her ears. The familiar sound of her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, warning to stay away from the windows. She gripped the journal, its chilling entries thundering through her thoughts as she approached the window, breathing heavy. What she saw sent terror coursing through her veins. Shadows swirled under the sparse moonlight, figures shifting just beyond her view, their movements erratic and unnatural. Had she really left her old life behind, only to step into another horror? Or had she simply awakened the darkness that had long lain dormant? Trapped in a space where time forgot human warmth, Jenna's breath caught in her throat as the shadows drew closer, closing in, the eyes watching her reflecting pure malice. The weight of the past hung heavy, and she realized with rising dread that perhaps now, those old prices would be collected. What would she sacrifice to protect her children from the unearthly horror lurking in the depths of the night? In that breathless moment, she understood the truth. Sometimes, fresh starts can unearth the most sinister tales waiting in the dark. Jenna staggered back from the window, her heart thundered like a war drum in her chest. The shadow figures, seeming to pulse with a life of their own, danced mockingly in the moonlight. She forced herself to look again, but the darkness outside morphed into formless shapes that flickered in and out of clarity. The living shadows were drawing closer, inching toward her sanctuary. "Mom! What's wrong?" Ethan's voice, high with confusion, reached her from down the hall. She could hear the shuffling of small feet, the innocent rush of a child unaware of the lurking dread. Fear for her children amplified the terror gripping her, and she turned to dart down the hallway toward their voices, her body moving on instinct. "Stay in your rooms!" Jenna shouted, her voice trembling as she rushed toward them. She grabbed the door to Ethan's room, flinging it wide open. Lily was perched on the bed with wide, glassy eyes, peering out at the darkness that choked the window. Ethan stood behind her, his tiny face twisted in worry. "Mommy, what's happening?" he whimpered, clutching his sister's arm. "Just stay here. Please," she begged, ushering them both inside. She slammed the door, heart racing, and felt the heaviness press down on her from above, like a storm gathering strength. "We'll be okay," she whispered, more to convince herself than them. Jenna stepped away, eyes flickering to the window. The tapping had morphed into scratching scratches that sounded like nails clawing at the wood. An ear-splitting crack interrupted the night, sending a shiver down her spine. The shadows infringed upon the room, a creeping darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. "Mom!" Lily squealed, burying her face in her brother's shoulder. Jenna turned, a rush of panic and protectiveness filling her. "You need to listen to me carefully," she said, crouching to meet their gaze. "You both must be brave. I'll be right back, I have to check something." Each word was laced with determination, but doubt gnawed at her core. The children looked at each other, tiny nods exchanged. As she opened the bedroom door, the scratching intensified like an angry swarm of bees. She took a deep breath and stepped into the corridor, each footfall feeling heavier than the last, the air around her twisted, cold and oppressive. Shadows danced along the walls as if alive, reaching out, hungry for warmth and memories. She reached for the journal tucked beneath her arm, holding it like a shield. Pages fluttered, whispering ghostly secrets that chilled her soul. The last entry had warned her of the Watcher's spirits who claimed what was left behind, who wanted to reclaim the life that had once been theirs. Jenna's pulse thundered as she realized this was more than just a delusion. They were coming for her, for the children. She needed the flashlight. The old one from the kitchen was the only source of comfort. Each step toward the kitchen ignited the unmistakable sensation of being watched, a gaze as harsh and burning as the dying embers of a fire. She hesitated at the doorframe, heart pounding. She could hear the hushed whispers now, the soft calls from the shadows just out of sight. Her grandmother's voice mingled with other soft, coaxing tones. Come to us." "No." Jenna gasped, shaking her head. She couldn't give in. She had to protect Ethan and Lily, no matter the cost. She refused to let them fall into the dark. Just then, a blast of wind rattled the window panes, a wild howl that swept through the kitchen. The flashlight lay lonely on the counter, its beam flickering bravely against the shadowy encroachment. As she reached for it, the ancient floorboards beneath her creaked ominously, echoing the warnings she had ignored. In that fleeting moment, she saw it, a dark hand reaching through the shadows, claw-like fingers stretching toward her. What price would she pay to fend off the dread? Therefore, as the dismal air thickened, Jenna's resolve intensified. She had to make a choice: fight against what was after them or surrender to the dark whispers that promised peace in return for her children. Could she stand against the encroaching void, or would the curse of the land consume her? In that chilling moment, she wondered how far she would go to keep them safe, and what would come knocking at her door next. Jenna's fingers brushed the cold metal of the flashlight, her heart racing as the darkness whispered around her. The shadows loomed larger, the air thick with the weight of anticipation and dread. She could feel the claws of terror scrabbling at the edges of her sanity, urging her to flee. "No more!" she hissed, gripping the flashlight tightly. With a flick, the beam burst to life, casting a narrow pool of light into the suffocating dark. The shadows recoiled momentarily, revealing twisted edges of familiar furniture, characters in a horror play. Jenna squinted, searching for the creeping tendrils of the darkness lurking beyond the reach of her feeble light. "Stay close," she whispered, turning quickly to the walls of the kitchen. The haunting voice still echoed, growing louder, more insistent. Come to us suddenly. The scratching returned, a frenzied uproar vibrating through the air. It was no longer just the windows, it was the walls, the floors, the very home she had cherished. The sounds filled her ears like a million voices arguing, clamoring for her attention, pulling her toward the abyss. Choosing survival became a dance of desperation. She raced back toward Ethan and Lily, each step fueled by the panic that bubbled fiercely within her. Glancing over her shoulder, she caught sight of shapes darting just beyond the threshold of her flashlight's glow. The shadows writhed, their edges curling like smoke, and she had a gut-wrenching feeling they were more than mere figments of her imagination. "Mama!" Ethan cried, his small voice cracking like glass shattering. "What's happening out there?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Jenna lied, forcing her voice to stabilize against the storm of fear clawing at her throat. "Stay right here, okay? I need to protect you." As she hurried back into Ethan's room, the door slammed behind her with a violent bang, as if compelled by some unseen force. Jenna barely had time to register it when the lights flickered, a grim reminder of the creeping shadows attempting to break through. "What's that?" Lily whispered, eyes wide, filled with confusion and fright. "Just old house problems," she said, as the flickering grew more pronounced, casting the room into staccato darkness. She backed away from the door, her heart racing, flashlight gripped in both hands, light darting around like a frantic firefly. The scratching intensified outside, now intertwined with faint murmurs, like a chorus of lost souls searching for something that had been taken from them. Jenna felt sweat bead along her spine. She couldn't lose her children, not now, not ever. Suddenly, the whispers changed, morphing into guttural sounds that swirled in an almost playful tone, echoing through the closed door. "Jenna, bring them to us, we are waiting." A cold seep invaded her limbs, creeping in like frost on a winter night. "No!" She shouted at the door, her voice raw and desperate. "Get away from us!" The flashlight flickered again, plunging them into darkness. For a heartbeat, dread consumed them, and Jenna's breath caught in her throat. Then, with a crack like thunder, the bedroom door flew open violently, revealing only impenetrable blackness. Her heart plunged as she felt the air shift behind her. The shadows were trying to breach their sanctuary. "It's too strong," Ethan wailed, entwined in Lily's arms as they huddled together, despair etched across their faces. Jenna swung the flashlight wildly, searching the room. Her hands trembled, not just from fear but from the weight of what loomed just beyond the door. Why were they still there? Why hadn't they gone back to the shadows? The walls seemed to pulse, vibrating with a life of their own, and Jenna knew they were seconds away from being overrun. "We have to go. Now!" she yelled, her voice slicing through the thick silence like razor wire. One last glance toward the door. It was warping, twisting as if trying to form into something grotesque. "Jenna," a whisper drifted closer, softer this time. "Let them come in an instant." With her children's terrified eyes locked on hers, Jenna backed toward the window, the world outside, a battleground of swirling night and malevolence. Could she truly flee into the dark rather than submit? Before she could decide, the ground beneath her feet shook. Shadows poured into the room like rushing water, and she braced herself for the inevitable breach. Would they escape this encroaching doom, or was the darkness merely a harbinger of their fate? Outside, she thought she heard laughter, cold and mocking. The room trembled around Jenna as shadows enveloped them. Frantic, she slammed against the window, desperately peering outside into the night. But what lay beyond was not the sanctuary she sought, it was an abyss that throbbed with an unsettling pulse, alive and aware. The laughter echoed again, and the sinister joy in it made her blood run cold. "Mama!" Lily cried, her small voice cracked with fear. "Hold on to each other!" Jenna shouted over the growing cacophony, her heart drumming in her chest. She turned the flashlight towards the door, but instead of showing a path to freedom, it revealed shifting forms, specters creeping closer, their outlines sharp and hungry. The air thickened like a heavy fog, pressing against her skin. "Why won't they leave?" she exclaimed, backing away from the door, her throat raw with terror. She felt the weight of their presence, a tangible force trying to invade their bubble of safety. As the shadows surged forward, colors twisted in the beam of light, a mix of gray, brown, and moments of harsh black that seemed to ripple. They were no longer just shadows. They were shapes resembling faces, painful, twisted expressions that looked back at her, mocking her fear, taunting her desperation. "Jenna!" Ethan's voice broke, an almost unbearable sound wrapped in despair. "Can't we just go out the door? Is it safe?" Her heart splintered at his innocence. "No. We can't. We can't let them in." Suddenly, the flashlight flickered violently, just as the murmurs gained strength, turning into shouts that made her skin crawl. "Jenna! Bring them! Come to us!" The walls shook, the flooring groaned, and with every second, it felt like a living thing was trying to swallow them whole. Jenna willed herself to remain calm, to project strength to her children. "We need to find something to block the door," she instructed, her voice trembling but resolute. With shaky hands, she turned towards Ethan's nightstand, hastily grabbing a handful of toys, searching for anything that could buy them time. But the shadows were relentless, pressing against their small haven. Another scream of laughter pierced the sound of their frantic movements, a sound so chilling she nearly dropped the flashlight. Outside the window, dark figures shuffled, more tangible than anything Jenna had seen. They had no faces, just gnashing, gnarly mouths, and hands that reached for her from the blackness. She resisted the urge to scream. "Mommy, I want to go outside." Lily sobbed, her legs quivering in fear. "No, honey. Not until we can escape." Jenna barked, her voice barely holding together. Nerves thrashed like raw tendons stretched too far. With urgency, she wedged a chair under the door handle, forcing her mind to stay focused despite the growing chaos. The shadows reacted. A low rumbling filled the air, as if the very house was growling in displeasure. A pressure weighed down on her, tightening like a vice around her chest. She turned, seeking comfort from the light, but the flashlight dimmed, flickering as though stuttering on the brink of death, reflecting her dwindling hope. "Where do we go?" Ethan's plea pierced her resolve like glass shattering. Outside, swirling in the darkness, shapes danced with malicious glee, and suddenly, a pair of glowing eyes locked onto Jenna's. They bore through her, filling her with dread. The figures laughed again, the laughter mingling with the walls, and she felt it deeper than fear. She felt it grasp for something vital within her. With a surge of adrenaline, Jenna prepared to hurl herself at the window, her instinct screaming that the only way out was through. But just as she lunged forward, solid shadows twisted to form an arm, blocking her path. Jenna stumbled back, heart hammering as panic set in. What do they want?" "Bring them to us," the sinister chant echoed, making her blood run cold. Jenna froze, a horrifying realization wrapping around her throat. Were they after her children? "Run!" she screamed, but the shadows surged, closing in like a mist ready to suffocate them. In the electrified air, Jenna felt time stretch. Her heart pounded like a war drum, urging her to fight back against the encroaching darkness. She would not let them take her children, but behind her, the door creaked open slowly, and from the depths of the night, a voice much like her own whispered, "Come to us, it's time you join." What had she awakened? Jenna's mind raced as the echoes of her own voice lingered in the air. Join. The word clawed at her sanity, twisting her stomach into knots. She took a step back, but that was too much for the shadows licking at her heels. They surged forward, hungry and restless, a mass of darkness determined to suffocate them. "Lily! Ethan! Stay close!" she shouted, instinctively wrapping her arms around them. They were trembling like leaves in a storm, their small bodies pressed against her, searching for safety in their mother's embrace. The door creaked wide, and the darkness beyond pulsed a living, breathing entity. Jenna could see more than just shadows now. There were outlines of twisted bodies contorted in silent screams, eyes glimmering with an unholy hunger. Their tainted laughter enveloped her, echoing through her very bones. Mommy, the door. Ethan whined, pulling away. Please, let us go. No. Jenna's voice cracked as she pulled him back, almost too late. She hurled her body against the door, slamming it shut, desperate to keep that world on the other side at bay. But the shadows were fighting back now. The door vibrated in its frame, rattling like the chains of a forgotten grave. Jenna. Another voice broke through the chaos, a whisper threading through the laughter. It was soft and eerily familiar, but somehow wrong. It came from everywhere and nowhere, crawling under her skin. You know you want to join us, her heart racing. Jenna's head spun. No, I want. You can't have them. Her voice echoed defiantly against the wall, managing to drown out the darkness for a moment, but the laughter grew louder, a cacophony of joy mocking her defiance, as more hands reached through the open door. She could feel their fingers brush against the wood, slippery and cold, desperate to slip through. Frost crawled over the door frame, racing against time itself as if it wanted to seal her and her children here forever. Mommy, I'm scared, Lily whimpered, her chin trembling, tears pooling in large, innocent eyes. Stay behind me. Jenna yelled, recovering some of her strength. We need to find a way out. The flashlight sputtered again, the swirling beam now barely illuminating the faces horrific, painted with anguish and malice. Jenna could feel their breath on her skin, rotten and suffocating. Mommy, I'm cold, Ethan whispered, and she felt him shiver, the chill spreading through her own bones. Without thinking, Jenna spun to face the windows, now an expansive void calling to her. We have to do it. She shouted. If we jump, sudden streaks cut through the darkness, forms darting and twisting. They filled the air, caught her in their wake, a multitude of eyes, glimmering with desperation. They wanted something from her, and she now understood. They craved a piece of her soul. Jenna hesitated, glancing back at her children. Stick together. On my count 1, 2. A rattle shook the door as the shadows paused, swarming for a split second before lunging again. 3. She screamed, her voice piercing the thrumming air. She charged forward, clenching her children tightly, aiming for the window. But as they reached the frame, at that very moment, everything froze. The laughter went silent. The shadows halted, their twisted mouths wide as if in shock. Join us or lose everything, the disembodied voice resonated, pulling at the edges of her mind, threatening to tear her apart from the inside. They didn't want just her, they wanted her children too. Jenna's heart plummeted. She was standing on the edge between love and survival, between damnation and safety. Which would she choose? Jenna, the voice beckoned again, soft yet commanding. Her skin prickled as the figures began to gather again, slowly slinking towards her. Who were they? What did they know? Just before she could dive through the window, the room shook violently, the shadows closing in with terrifying speed. Jenna knew she had only moments left. Was there any way to save them? Or would it be too late before she figured it out? At that instant, dread wrapped around her heart like a snake, squeezing tighter. In the suffocating dark, she felt the panic rise. Everyone's eyes settled on her, all waiting for a decision. Time's almost up, Jenna, and in that tension-filled moment, when everything hung in balance, a deep voice reverberated through the shadows. You've already made your choice. What had she chosen? As Jenna stood frozen with fear, the weight of the shadows pressed harder against her. Time seemed undone, stretching out like a cruel joke. She could feel Ethan and Lily's breaths, quickened and shallow, matching the erratic pounding of her heart. The darkness exhaled, a cold shudder creeping into the room, wrapping around them like a frigid fog. Mommy? Lily's voice was barely a whisper now, lost in the thickening tension. Her trembling hand reached up, small fingers seeking reassurance. Jenna's grip tightened around her children. I want to let them take you, she promised fiercely, even as doubt gnawed at her insides. She looked back at the window, its glass now glistening with condensation, tainted by the shadows outside, urging them to join. Join us, the voice returned, more insistent, wrapping around her thoughts. You want to feel whole again, don't you? Shut up. Jenna screamed, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. The shadows rippled in response, twisting and undulating like a living creature. Leave us alone. But the response was a chorus of laughter, low and mocking, a sound that splintered any remaining semblance of calm. Jenna stared down at her children, and an unthinking instinct surged through her. We'll jump. I don't want to. Shouted Ethan, fear strangling the words before they left his lips. His eyes darted nervously, reflecting the flickering light from the flashlight that struggled to stay alive. Ethan, please, Jenna implored, pulling him closer. I need you to trust me. We have to jump before they get us. The shadows were nearly clawing through the door now, a mass of limbs and faces gleaming with anticipation. They wanted her to waver, they wanted to take them all, not just Jenna, but her children too. She could see Ethan's face pale, realization sinking in. The wall of darkness shuddered one final time, a monstrous wave crashing against the door. Wood groaned, splinters flying as the shadows clawed closer. Mommy, help. The urgency in Lily's voice was a razor, slicing through the suffocating atmosphere. Jump. Jenna cried, propelling herself and her children toward the window. Time resumed an agonizing rush. They collided against the glass, breaking through not just air but a pocket of space where ominous whispers tangled like broken memories. Her heart thundered as she prepared for impact, the floor rushing to meet them. The world flipped, light and dark danced chaotically, and for a moment, she thought, maybe it will be okay. Maybe they would be free, but the impact didn't come. Instead, they were suspended in the black void, weightless, surrounded by the sounds of the horrifying laughter from just beyond the glass. It reverberated through her like a pulse, reminding her they hadn't escaped, they'd merely shifted into something worse. Jenna's voice, more melodious than she'd ever heard, lured her to the edges of her consciousness. Come back to us. Suddenly, she felt a warm hand resting on her back. She spun around, instinctively shielding her children, but the figure that stood there was not stark and ghastly like the others. This one showed emotion, a semblance of familiarity. Help us, Jenna, it pleaded, eyes brimming with regret. Who are you? She gasped, both repulsed and drawn toward the figure. The shadows closed in, suffocatingly close, hungry yet hesitant. I'm the reason you're here, it whispered, breath as soft as velvet but sharp as a blade. Jenna's heart raced. She was standing on a precipice, the edge of a rift between truth and oblivion. What choice would she make? The shadows pulsed, alive with anticipation, waiting for her answer, for her to either declare her surrender or defiance. Panic rose anew, twisting her gut. What did you do? What do you want from us? She felt her defenses crumble with each question, the very fabric of her reality fraying. It's already begun, Jenna, but it doesn't have to end this way. The shadows shifted closer, and Jenna felt the rising tide press against her defenses. She could either embrace the truth or fight against it. As the figure's face twisted into a haunting smile, she knew she had only seconds. You can save them. It urged, fingers gesturing toward her children, and then, the darkness surged forth, swallowing her in an all-consuming wave, cold and hungry. Jenna gasped for breath, the shadows suffocating her will, and a horrific realization sank in, even if she fought, would they truly survive? What had she chosen, and what would the true cost be? Please was all she could breathe, as the abyss opened wide, promising to consume everything she loved, and in that final moment, she grasped the truth slipped from her fingers, perhaps there was no escape. Join us, the chorus echoed once more, what had she truly unleashed? The ground beneath them shifted, an unsettling tremor that felt like a heartbeat, slow, rhythmic, and hungry. Jenna's mind raced, her chest tight with dread. The shadows swirled ominously closer, their presence suffocating. How could she save her children if they were trapped in a world built on terror? What had once felt tangible and solid was dissolving into a nightmare. Mommy, make them stop. Ethan's voice trembled as he clung to her, his small body shaking uncontrollably. I'm trying. Jenna's voice cracked, desperation clawing at her throat. The figure before her, a flickering mirage of familiarity, stepped forward. Its eyes gleamed softly in the dark like two dim stars. You must understand the darkness only desires to be understood. It feeds on fear, on loss, on your hidden truths. It thrives in shadows. No. You don't know, none of you know what it's like. Jenna shouted. Her heart raced as memories flickered through her mind, the pain, the loss, her past clawing its way back into her present. The shadows pulsed, almost breathing in sync with her thoughts. Join us, embrace it. Only then will you find freedom, they sang, their voices siphoning the essence of her fears. Instinctively, Jenna took a step back, keeping Ethan and Lily tucked behind her. She didn't want to let go of them, she wouldn't let them become part of this horror. Standing at that strange precipice, Jenna wrestled between the seductive promise of peace and the instinct to fight. What do you want from us? She howled, her anger flaring as bright and fierce as her determination. Your truth, the figure breathed, stepping closer, an illusion of compassion. Feed the darkness and it will spare you. Be whole again. A bead of sweat dripped down Jenna's brow, and she recalled the guilt buried deep within her past mistakes, the dreams she had given up, the person she had once been. Each memory ignited a flicker of darkness, feeding the shadows, making them writhe in excitement. No! Jenna screamed, shaking her head furiously. You can't have them. You can't have any part of us. As if the declaration had been a challenge, the darkness surged forward in a rush, a monstrous wave intent on engulfing them. Ethan's grip tightened around her waist, Lily's soft whimpers echoed in the void. Jenna's instincts kicked in, the fight-or-flight response roaring to life within her core. Get behind me! She barked, positioning herself defensively in front of her children. Suddenly, the shadows drew back, hesitating, as if unsure. They flickered like candle flames about to be extinguished, leaving Jenna a moment to breathe. Don't let it take what you cherish, the figure whispered. Your choice can shatter this illusion. In that split second, an unnerving clarity struck her. Jenna realized the darkness was merely a reflection of her fears. Strength surged within her as she remembered how fiercely she had fought for her family all her life. Stay close. Jenna instructed her children, her gaze hardening. We will find a way out of this. With newfound determination, she reached into her depths, conjuring every warm memory, every moment of joy and hope. Light flooded the space around them, piercing through the shadowy grasp like a beacon. The figure hissed, recoiling as Jenna poured forth her love and strength, dispersing the shadows that scrambled to consume her, but the darkness didn't just retreat, it lashed out, desperate. The mocking laughter swelled again, cruel and loud, shaking Jenna's resolve. She clenched her fists, her heart pounding in rhythm with a pulse she thought was long dead. Do you really think you can escape? It mocked, the laughter echoing in the oppressive dark. All you've ever done is run from the truth. Jenna paused, her breath hitching. With every step she'd taken, every struggle, had she simply delayed the inevitable? A chilling thought wrapped around her heart, squeezing tighter. As the darkness began to swirl again, the figure leaned closer, the warmth dimming. You were never meant to escape, you were meant to join us, Jenna. The air crackled with tension, and Jenna's determination faltered for just a breath. Was surrender their only option? With her heart racing and despair clawing at her throat, she thought, what if running away had only led her deeper into this darkness? But the ultimate question remained, what horrific truth had she buried that could either bind them or finally set them free? As the shadows encroached, she felt an answer teetering on the tip of her tongue, an answer that could either bring them back into the light or drag them into perpetual night. What would she choose? Jenna tightened her grip on her children's hands, her heart racing as darkness pressed in like a suffocating shroud. The shadows danced, writhing and twisting, hungry for any hint of fear to latch onto. The figure loomed closer, its star-like eyes blazing into her soul, beckoning her to confront her horror. "What do you mean, join?" she gasped, her chest tightening as memories churned beneath the surface, threatening to burst free. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder of the decisions that had led them here, to a brink beyond comprehension. "Join the truth within," whispered the shadow, its voice slithering through the air like smoke. "Embrace it. You can't hide from what is yours. Just let go." The words dripped of temptation. A surge of panic rose within her. "I want tea," she shouted, her defiance echoing in the stifling darkness. "I refuse to let you take us." A cacophony of hushed whispers erupted, the shadows gaining substance, almost alive with sinister intent, mocking her resolve. Mother, Ethan's voice trembled, pleading. His wide eyes reflected the swirling chaos, and Jenna's heart shattered. He was right there, caught in the grip of something beyond their control. "Lily." She dug her nails into Ethan's tiny hands, her mind a whirlwind of anguish and fear. They were losing ground, losing time, and the darkness was only growing stronger. "We have to move. We have to find a way out. Now." The shadows recoiled at her urgency, but thrummed with electricity, sensing the despair laced in her words. They surged closer still, hungry for her acceptance. Jenna's breath quickened. Every flicker of darkness felt like a personal attack against her family. Suddenly, an unsettling calm draped itself around them, catching Jenna off guard. In that eerie stillness, a moment of clarity seeped through the dread. "We are more than fear," she breathed through clenched teeth. "Love is stronger." The shadows shrieked, their chorus twisted with rage, recoiling at the mere mention of an indomitable force they couldn't conquer. With a fierce surge of will, Jenna summoned every ounce of love she held for her children, illuminating the encroaching gloom like the dawn breaking through a blackened sky. The light cut sharp into the dark, revealing fleeting glimpses of twisted faces lost in torment, trapped by their own despair. They shrieked and howled in failed revelations, and as another pulse of warmth flowed from her, cracks began to splinter through the shadows, vines of darkness unraveling and snaking away. "Stay close," Jenna urged again, and together, she pulled her children forward, pushing through the remnants of the nightmare. A pathway emerged, subtle yet undeniable, glimmering like a candle in a vast wasteland. Just as she thought they would break free, the darkness lunged at them one more time, desperate in its final attempt to reclaim her. "Your truth shall be your doom," screeched the figure, the longing for despair rolling off it in waves. The ground trembled violently beneath their feet, like the very earth itself was angry. Jenna clenched her eyes shut for a moment, heart thundering, and murmured an instinctive prayer. When she opened them again, she felt warmth wash over her, an embrace of hope that filled the very marrow of her bones. Not today. Like a shepherd rallying her flock, Jenna pressed on, her will igniting the way forward. The horrifying faces in the dark faded like ghosts, their cries turned to whispers, helpless against a love so fierce it could shatter chains of sorrow, and just as they were about to burst through the final remnants of darkness, a terrible, bone-chilling scream emanated from the figure behind them, pain mixed with fury, echoing into the void. "You will never escape what you truly are." With one last burst of courage, Jenna surged forward, dragging her children into the light, only to find an unsettling silence waiting on the other side. What lay ahead was uncertain, a thick fog hanging where clarity should exist. Tension hung heavy in the air, leaving her with one harrowing thought: had they truly escaped, or had they merely been relocated to another layer of darkness that awaited? As they stepped into the uncertain landscape, Jenna's heart sank. A new unease weighed down on her as she caught sight of a familiar figure standing at the edge of a murky forest. "Jenna, come home," it whispered, a voice all too recognizable. Was the nightmare truly over? The air felt thick, like a heavy blanket, smothering Jenna's fearful breaths. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, a frantic drum echoing through the almost palpable fog. Hand in hand with her children, she surveyed the murky expanse before her. Gnarled trees twisted grotesquely, their trunks like skeletal fingers reaching out to snatch them back into darkness. "Get ready," she whispered, bracing herself. "We stick together. No matter what." Ethan squeezed her hand tighter, his small face pale with fright. Lily's eyes darted from shadow to shadow, sensing danger lurking around every corner. The familiar figure, its shape looming just beyond the tree line, stood still, serene yet terrifying. Jenna's mind raced. The voice that beckoned felt like a stinging nettle against her skin, a reminder of all she had endured. "No!" she shouted hoarsely. "You're not my home." Yet, despite her resolve, a wave of longing crashed over her. Memories surfaced: childhood laughter, warmth of family dinners, unyielding love. But those moments felt tainted now, twisted into something sinister by the darkness that sought them. "Mom, what is that?" Ethan's voice trembled, breaking her reverie. "It's just a trick," she stammered, forcing a brave smile. "Just another shadow. We're stronger than it." The figure remained, unblinking, as if feeding off her growing uncertainty. The fog thickened around them, swirling like a cyclone, and Jenna could feel the edges of her sanity slipping. Each blink clouded her vision with memories of despair, each grasp of her children's hands a tether keeping her from being consumed. "Let us move forward," Jenna urged. With every step, she sensed whispers curling around her ankles, dragging at her spirit. The forest felt alive, and the trees whispered secrets, their branches swaying as though warning her of the fate that awaited. "Where are we going?" Lily's small voice piped up, a hint of fear creeping into her tone. The innocence of her daughter struck a nerve deep within Jenna. I don't know, sweetie. But we have to find the way out. Why don't we just go back?" Ethan suggested, glancing over his shoulder. The figure seemed to pulse with longing, a magnetic pull that made her want to turn and run. The temptation was fierce. But Jenna shook her head fiercely. "No. We refuse it." Ahead, a fork in the path emerged, two options looming in front of them, one side flooded with a pale, ghostly light, the other soaked in shadow, swirling and opaque. "Which way?" Jenna asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mom Lily's voice dropped to a frightened whimper. "I feel something. Something bad." Jenna's gut twisted. "I know, but we have to choose." As the children stood beside her, the shadows grew restless. They writhed at the edges of her vision, wriggling like serpents hungry for the taste of despair. "Choose wisely." The figure's voice echoed around them, taunting, reverberating through the chilling silence. "One path leads to your doom, while the other perhaps something worse." Sweat clung to Jenna's brow, and she could feel the energy around her sapping her resolve. But with a deep breath, she straightened her back and stepped forward, ready to choose their fate. Just as her foot landed on the threshold of the light, a wailing cry erupted from the depths of the shadows, a cacophony of voices mingled with screams of anguish and loss. It reverberated in her bones, chilling her blood. "Mom!" Ethan gasped, his eyes as wide as saucers, and in that moment, Jenna's heart started to race anew. The figure rushed forward, its arms outstretched. "You don't have to run, Jenna, just join me. It's so much easier." Time slowed as she faced the growing darkness, a choice laid bare before her, a desperate plunge into the unknown or a spiraling descent deeper into despair. But as she opened her mouth to speak, another truth flickered to life in her heart, a truth that could ignite salvation or doom them all. Could the choice cost more than she was willing to sacrifice? And in that tactless moment, she realized she had to choose not just for herself, but for Ethan and Lily. What awaited them at the intersection of hope and despair? The shadows clawed toward her, malevolent hands grasping at the fabric of their reality. Jenna felt the weight of the choice pressing down like a crashing wave. But she stood firm, willing to fight. "I do not belong to you," she screamed, raw and fierce, as every ounce of courage coiled into her words. Join us, the figure whispered, voice smooth like molasses, spreading its twisted promise through the fog. Let go of the pain, Jenna. You can find peace. But Jenna shook her head, feeling the warmth of her children clinging to her, anchoring her to reality. No. I'm choosing them. I won't let darkness dictate our fate. The air shimmered, crackling with the intensity of her determination. Ethan squeezed her hand, his small voice trembling. Mommy, I'm scared. Stay close, she said, pushing down the fear threatening to bubble and consume her. We're strong together. We can't let it win. With each step forward, the shadows hissed, swirling faster as the divide in the forest beckoned. The ghostly light surged softly, like an embrace, while the shadowy path writhed with snarls and whispers. Each moment felt like thin ice, cracking underfoot. As they reached the fork, Jenna's breath came out in shaky whispers. Which way? Isn't that the darkness calling? Lily pointed to the shadows that pulsed rhythmically, their chants echoing and pulling at her spirit. No. Jenna snapped, her heart racing. That's the wrong way. They turned together, facing the light. It glimmered, inviting but uncertain. That could lead us out or into more traps. Let us go, Jenna urged, resolute, and they stepped forward, breaking through the thin veil separating warmth from despair. The moment they crossed, a jolt surged through them, the tension cracking in the air a blissful, liberating warmth enveloped them like a broken chain. The whispers transformed at that point, fading into a distant echo, like smoke blown away by an unseen wind. Sighs of relief washed over Jenna as she felt a sense of safety begin to swell within her. Ethan squeezed tighter, while Lily cautiously looked around. Then everything shifted. The ground beneath her feet turned solid, and the light brightened. They were not just free, they had crossed into another dimension, a glade rippling with warmth, filled with lush greenery and vibrant colors, life bursting with an energy so refreshing it made her heart race. But fear still clung to the edges of her mind, a wisp of lingering doubt. Is this real? She whispered, her eyes scanning the radiant world. Yes, came a voice, familiar yet comforting. Jenna turned to find an ethereal figure ahead, glowing with warmth. It was her grandmother, her gentleness enveloping the air. Grandma? Jenna felt breathless. It's time to heal, Jenna. You've faced the dark and now you can breathe. You can let go of the pain. Around her, the shadows flickered and faded, helpless against this brightness. Jenna felt tears brim her eyes as warmth cascaded over her heart. Can we stay here? Ethan asked, hope blooming behind his small voice. Only if you choose it, my sweet, her grandmother replied, tenderly, reaching toward them. But you must also forgive yourselves. It's the only way to truly remain. Jenna shuddered, a flood of memories surfacing, the losses, the screams, the weight of each moment she had carried so fiercely. In embracing her own vulnerabilities, she recognized that facing the past didn't mean becoming consumed by it. The light pulsed, gently urging her to release every shard of sorrow. I forgive myself, Jenna whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, the weight finally lifting. Simultaneously, Ethan and Lily echoed her words, their small voices adding strength and harmony, a melody woven through the air. The shadows turned to mist, losing their substance as they thinned and melted away. Jenna's heart filled with a fierce warmth that surged through the glade, an ancient power of love and light flowing within her. What's happening? Lily peered up, awed by the transformation around them. Freedom, Jenna whispered, realizing it was by their unwavering love that shadows had no strength. They could move forward, becoming stewards of truth, breaking cycles of hurt not just for themselves but breaking through for generations to come, and so, they stood together, hands entwined, hearts knit in memory and in hope. This would be their new beginning, stepping away from the darkness and into the light where laughter echoed, love flourished, and hope thrived. Mom! Ethan tugged at her, excitement shining in his eyes. Look! Jenna followed his gaze, smiling as sunlight broke through, flooding warmth and radiance across their faces. Beyond the glade lay a bright world filled with possibility, beauty stretching infinitely in all directions. It was a fresh start, no longer tethered to the shadows. Together they took that next step onward, hand in hand, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead in this newfound light. If you love this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Hit that button, and don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that are coming your way. It's time to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let's keep this community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I can't wait to hear from you. Your voice matters, and hey, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us bring everyone into this amazing journey.